I'm sitting down with Glen Dobbs, founder of Logan Tech, and more importantly, the father of Logan, the reason behind our first flagship product. So, Glen, for Autism Acceptance Month, there have been a lot of people on my social media wondering what your origin story is, and I was hoping you could share with everybody how we're even sitting here today. How did you get started?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Gus. I'm trying to put this disease in the simple terms.
Yeah.
We started off learning that Logan was struggling with communication at about 18 months. He had started to talk a little bit, mommy, daddy, kitty, doggy. He could say a few words, and then they started going backwards. He stopped being able to say those words, and his behavior got more and more, um, outlandish. He would bite himself and had some self-injurious behaviors. We were clear that there was some kind of issue, so we had him. We were looking for an evaluation, and he got diagnosed with PDD-NOS. That's pervasive developmental delay, not otherwise specified, and he had. We got him into the Birth to Three program, which is what it was called in Connecticut, where we lived at the time, and that's the early intervention. And every state has an early intervention program, and for parents that are, in this type of situation, you definitely want to seek services. Your doctor can recommend that for you. But we started to receive services for that, and in that time, Logan was two to 3 years old. I think he was at a daycare center that specialized in early intervention, and they had a speech therapist. And the speech therapist told me that Logan should get on the PECS system right away because he's got apraxia of speech and he might not talk, and we need to get him going on some kind of functional communication. And I said to the speech therapist, well, I don't want that kid using little pictures to communicate. You're a speech therapist. Why don't you make him talk? And
Oh my gosh. I'm
yeah,
sure there are a lot of SOPs that will be thrilled to hear that. No, but
yeah. Well,
it's genuine.
yeah, right. So here's the thing: I didn't know anything about this, and I was
Mm.
my wife and I were panicking about what are we going to do, and I just thought speech therapists fixed problems with speech. I didn't know that there could be a kid that couldn't talk. I hadn't
Right.
experienced it before. And so, the irony is now I have a company called Logan Tech that makes a product called the ProxTalker that uses little pictures with Velcro on the back of them to produce voice output to help people talk. So I came around 180, and I did eventually tell that speech therapist, I'm really sorry I ever said that to you. Um, and she kind of forgave me. I'm not sure. But I mean, I tell that story because I think one of the most important things is as a practitioner, you might not realize the way this might sound to a parent, and as a parent, you might not realize what you don't know. And so this is one of the things I like to share with people, about part of our story. So we wound up looking at PECS, and Logan used PECS. And PECS is a fantastic method for certain people, as all of these AAC methods are a fantastic method for certain people.
Of course.
But none of them are everything to everybody. So what I learned is that PECS was a good thing. We wanted Logan to have a voice. I saw a product called the Dynavox, and I was thinking, boy, that would be great if Logan could have a Dynavox. Keep in mind, back at that time, iPads didn't exist, so there were just
Around
Dynavox, and Logan is 27 years old now, so this is 25 years ago. So touch screens were an exotic thing. To have computers didn't have touch screens, phones didn't have screens at all. It was a different time. So the technology was in a different place. So Dynavox and Prenke Romic and Saltillo were the companies. There was a company called Words Plus back then. And AMDI was around. So a number of these companies were around back then. But Dynavox I had looked was like sort of the biggest one around, and I thought Logan should have a Dynavox. So it took us a year to get an appointment with an AAC specialist because, again, back then, AAC specialists were few and far between.
mm-hmm.
None of this was covered by insurance. It was a different time. And the AAC specialist finally met with Logan, and they basically said Logan's behavior is too tough on the equipment. He would probably break a Dynavox. Also, his cognition was at a level where he couldn't navigate the different pages. He wouldn't, they trialed it. He definitely didn't get the concept. And she said, I'm sorry, there's no technology available for AAC for your son. You should just stick with PECs. And this is heartbreaking. We really didn't know what to do, and I was very disappointed. I had high hopes that if Logan got this Dynavox, he would be talking, and we could have these conversations. Again, I always thinking of problems and solutions, being that I was working as an engineer at the time. So the next thing that happened was I was working in the field of access control technologies. So we made electronic locks. We made card access systems and magnetic locks and keypad locks. And one of the things we used was called a prox card, or a proximity card. And these are cards that you use to get in buildings nowadays. A lot of times a hotel will issue you a card, and it's not the card that you swipe through the slot. It's a card that you put near the lock and it unlocks it. So those are proximity cards. And we were making locks that used those. And I was at work one day with a group of my engineering friends having lunch. And I said, my son uses this. I'll zoom back. My wife said to the therapist, with the PECs, wouldn't it be cool if these PECs could talk? And they all said, yeah, wouldn't it be cool if PECs could talk? And so that popped into my mind. And then at lunch, I was telling my colleagues, I said, my son uses this picture exchange communication system with little Velcro tags. And I'm thinking, what if we take a proximity card and we make it talk? We could call it a ProxTalker. And we're like, one of the electrical engineering guys was like, yeah, that wouldn't be hard to do at all. So we started talking about how to do it. And my friend Kevin Miller and I originally got together. He was the manager of electrical engineering where we were working. And we started to put together a game plan. We wound up building a rough prototype with wood, which I still have, and I should get you a picture of it.
That would be great.
It's in the front office as you walk in our lobby. The original ProxTalker. And interestingly, we had the antennas where the tags would go, and the buttons were below the antennas. And so you'd have to put the card on top of the antenna and press the button below the antenna, and it would talk. So I showed this to Logan. And I showed him, I demonstrated for him, I modeled how to use it. I pushed the button, I put the card on the antenna, pressed the button, and it would talk. He kept pressing the card, not the button near the card. And this was a profound revelation to me. He actually couldn't determine or notice that pressing the button was what you had to do. As soon as he saw the card make the sound, he pushed the card. And I realized I had to make the card into the button. So that's where we totally changed how we were going to do this. And the card had to sit on top of the button. And when you press the card, it talked. And this is what Logan specifically needed. And so that was interesting. So we wound up, long story short, we got our circuit boards going. We made some 3D printed models, and 3D printing was an exotic technology back then. We showed it at the autism show in Connecticut. That was our first autism show. And they told us you should go to this International Society for Augmentative and Alternative Communication in Toronto. So that was my second show. And they told me to go to ATIA and ASHA. So I did a couple of shows, and I wound up in England at Communication Matters, showing this thing. And by then we actually started making them, and it was a bit of a hit. So for certain people. Now, keep in mind, I had this initially thinking that this is only for severe autism, kids like Logan who couldn't talk, use an iPad, and were PECS users, and a very narrow concept of what this device could be used for. And what happened was therapists started using this with tactile symbols with blind, nonverbal, or visually impaired nonverbal kids. And I had no idea that there were blind or visually impaired nonverbal kids at the time. Again, I have a degree in physics. I'm an engineer type of guy. I had no background in special education. So everything I learned was, from personal experience or from other people. So the therapists were telling us about this, and I went to go see the school, and they had tactile symbols all over the place. And all these kids that couldn't see or couldn't see much or had visual impairments of various types were using a universal set. They were using the tactile connect kit from the American Pre-House for the Blind. And they had standardized all their students with the ProxTalker on that platform. And it was really neat. So those guys were using that. And so I started telling other people about that. And then eventually we wound up finding kids that couldn't use the ProxTalker, and we invented the ProxPad. And the ProxPad is like a large format ProxTalker for people with motoric challenges. So
How long did that take from the first prototype of the ProxTalker to the creation of the ProxPad?
I'd say 5 or 6 years. I think
Okay.
something like that. And I worked with John Eckrich at Adaptivation. He had a product called the Lex, and we decided to put the proximity technology in the Lex because it had a really nice touchpad that was very sensitive for people that couldn't press or pick or grab. And that can be in two modes, touch or proximity, and you can put it under a table or a wheelchair tray and just slide the cart over if you can't pick something up. So it's a very useful product using the same technology for a different application. So that's how we got started.
That is an incredible journey. And I think a lot of people, especially for Autism Acceptance Month, are going to find that, inspiring. Based on everything that you've already said, is there any insight you could share with maybe parents or anyone else of the biggest challenges along the way, not just inventing the device, but as a father, and what changed as far as what you thought communication should look like? Like it seemed like you designed the ProxTalker for one person, one specific needs of one person, but it ended up benefiting many others. Like what have you learned along the way?
Yeah, that's a good question. Quite a bit actually. I mean, I've been doing this over 15 years now, and Logan's gotten a lot bigger. And
That yes.
yeah, well, eventually he wound up after 5 years of having the ProxTalker, he wound up being able to use a dynamic screen, and now he started off with the alt chat. Then he went to a touch chat on a full size iPad. Now he's using touch chat on an iPad Mini, and we were told this would never happen. The big thing I can say is, for me, my expectation that the AAC would cause his autism to go away or to sort of change his overall trajectory from a neurological perspective was not a realistic expectation. For his quality of life to improve and his ability to interact with others and express his wants and needs, it's major. And the big thing I can say is that there's no one product that is going to do all of these things for everyone. And unfortunately, a lot of people have favorite products that they think are like, well, we can always solve it with this, or we can always do it with that. The fact of the matter is, each one of the different products has a right application. And the therapists and the experts that are AAC people should really, focus on feature matching and making sure that the person is getting something that will work. But as far as a parent's perspective, what I learned is what I didn't know. I thought I knew more than I did. And I also didn't know that experts often don't know everything either. And so you're really having to go through this world in which everybody's learning all the time. And you have to keep an open mind. And also, you have to recognize if you really don't want to idealize anybody who's in the professions. They're people too. So it's really about a two-way street, and you always want to explore. And the other thing is, there's a reason they call it special education. It's different. Every child, every case is different, and every person. There's a saying that I heard that is incredibly true. If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And I love that one because it's also true of any other disability or neurological anomaly. Each person is unique, and each circumstance is unique, and each family situation, each school situation. So you really want to get the right tools for the job in that application, in that situation, at that time, with the understanding that it's going to evolve. And you can't make things go faster than they can go. But conversely, you don't want to hold somebody back. So it's really a balancing act between where we are now, where we want to be, and what we need to do. and to maintain a collaborative attitude with your group. And by group, I call that, family, teachers, administration. The paraprofessional is often the unsung hero. That's the person that spends the most time with your kid, and is often not invited to the meeting, because what are they doing? They're watching your kid. If you can get someone else to watch the kid, when you bring that paraprofessional into the meeting, that person often will hold a lot of the wisdom that nobody else actually knows. The head administrator might not even know what a paraprofessional is. The speech therapist sees their kid 15 or 20 minutes out of a week, generally speaking, a very small amount, and that's the person that's making the decision. There's an OT and a PT. They should be involved in the AAC assessment process, because there's access needs, there's motoric challenges, there, all kinds of things. So if there's a visual situation, the teacher of the visually impaired should be involved with the AAC decision-making process. So these are things that I would suggest. Make sure that the whole team is assembled. Make sure everybody's willing and able to participate in these things. And I do see this happening more and more over time. When we started, it wasn't like that, but it really has become that way now. That you're getting better services now, I think, than when Logan was younger, in the United States as we speak.
Yeah.
And I think that's particularly true in the cities, from what I'm seeing. That's because the cities have a larger number of people who have disabilities. There's more people, and there's a higher ratio of staff that can handle it. We were in the country, and it was a little different. So, you're in the country, Logan was an anomaly. They've never had a kid in the district like him, and they never had the tools to deal with that. They didn't know what to do. Whereas in the city, they are equipped. They have access to professionals, and they have seen this before.
Been the case before.
Yeah. So there's a lot of dynamics between, demographic locations and things like that. But the bottom line is collaborate. That's my and work together. Try to get people surrounding your child and advocate for your child.
Yeah. For the biggest chance of success, collaborative, multidisciplinary approach really helps when considering all the factors. Well, it seems like you've been super open about your personal journey. Obviously, Logan was what inspired the first product. Before we let you go, was there any story that really stood out in the 15 plus years that you've been serving others? Like, was there one ProxTalker story that really resonated with you because of the impact it had on an AAC user?
Well, I mean, I'll say it was Logan.
I'm aware.
There were many. But I'll talk about my own personal story.
Please.
The first day that he had the ProxTalker, he was 11, and I had wanted him to have it for several years, because it took us several years to get it ready to be at a point where it was ready for him to actually carry it around and use it. And the first thing we did was we went to Wendy's, and he put it on the counter, and he said, "I want cheeseburger, I want French fries, and I want orange soda." And he jumped.
How did he do that?
We had prearranged tags that we think he wanted to say, that were basically modeled on his textbook and converted over to the ProxTalker. And he said it to the person who was taking the order himself. And he started jumping up and down, and he was extremely excited that he could order his own food. And that was really funny. Another story, I was with Sandra Hartley, who used to work with us in the UK, and we were visiting Logan in Boston, where he was living at the time. And I had told him that we were going to bring him bowling, but we were really it was late in the day, and I was going to bring him back, and he pulls out his ProxTalker, and I told him we were going back to the house where he was living, and he goes, "I want to go bowling." And Sandra said, "I think he's serious." And he knew that we were changing the thing we were doing, and we weren't going to go bowling. And I realized I got to take him bowling. So we turned around, we took him bowling, and he was able to assert himself. So, I mean, those
That's
guys
amazing.
were huge. And, those are my personal ones.
Of course.
But there's many others in the field that I don't want to talk about other people.
That's fair. Yeah. And I knew it was I knew it hit close to home and you have your own personal journey. I was just curious. Well, before we wrap this up, is there anything that keeps you going as far as continuing to operate a small business that serves users with complex communication needs? Like, is there something that personally inspires you besides Logan's story?
Well, yeah, I think everybody likes to leave the world a better place when they die than what it was when they were born. We all are builders. We all do interesting, unique things. Each of us has a skill and brings something to the table. For me, it gives me great joy to know that we are helping thousands of people. We have already helped thousands of people all around the world in all walks of life with many disabilities. I mean, we're making Braille label makers now, for people who are blind that need to make labels. We are reselling a sensory integration tent called the Sandcastle from Croatia. We're working with the same people in Croatia to bring AAC into Eastern Europe. There's so many things going on that we are changing the world a little bit each day, and that keeps me waking up in the morning. I mean, something about doing something good for the world is a wonderful thing to know. And you go to bed at night knowing whatever you did today is helping other people, other places in the world. And as a dad, I just want the other families to benefit from the stuff that we do and the stuff that all the other companies do that work in assistive technology.
That's amazing.
So this was a trajectory that changed my life. I never in a million years imagined I'd be working in the field of assistive technology. I didn't know the field existed except for Stephen Hawking. He was my only, data point with respect to assistive technology. That there's this physicist, and I majored in physics, who was an astrophysicist who couldn't talk, but he had, a disease which rendered him, physically challenged. And here was my son who was physically very fit but couldn't talk. So I really, got sideswiped by this whole project, and it was a wonderful accident. And I don't think I changed it for the world.
Wow. That is an amazing way to wrap this up. So, Glen, I appreciate you being really open with everybody, especially for Autism Acceptance Month. I know there's a lot of people that wanted to hear this story personally from you. So, thank you. Appreciate you, Glen. Always a pleasure. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys.